Hello, Sanbonani Babugede, and welcome to this week's exciting edition of your favorite program, Yilungelo, Lakho. It's your right, Mbugelo yazi sizakuni bukhoma la kumamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure. Satholakala futhi na ku SABC Plus. If you've already downloaded our app, uhleli nomajali ke umangcolosi kazi khali. Sithi namhlanje Mbugeli indaba yethu ithi indlela nje nale inkathi phela esiphila kuzo lapho okuningi esikwenzayo ngeimpilo zethu. Sikwenza phela ezandleni ngetechnology entsha sha nomakhalekhukhwini bohlobo lama smartphones labo phela esibasebenzisa kuona ama banking app kanye nokunye okuphathelene nezimali zethu konke lokhu ke sakulethe phela ukungaphephi kwabantu yigebengu. Yes Mbukeli, today we take a deeper look at the dangers associated with digital scams, especially this time when most of you are expecting imali evela lapha ku taxman. Asingabe samosha isikhathi singene shice odabeni lethu. The Southern African Fraud Prevention Services has now reported a rise of fraudulent activities, including a new trend of criminals that are targeting banking apps in order to loot victims' bank accounts. Yebo Mbukeli, lokhu ke bakwenza ngokuthi bantshontshe ama cellphone ngenhloso nje yokuwahacka bathole imininingwane yakho njengomthengi. Consumers are then warned to be extra vigilant and should also report their stolen cell phones to their respective banks. I guess ukuthi ninake lapho emgaqweni niyalazi lolu daba futhi nithini ngalo.
Bendingayazi mina le bafune ku report na kwi bank xa ulahlekelwe iphone. But then now when it comes to into bandisi senze ilento yakho transactions via app yam, normally it does have that two-way verification, and then whereby izawufuna nobamhlambi just to verify the face of the person, so ifuna selfie.
So engwaziyo nami ukuthi we are a police station reporter phone yakho, and then report na kuma service provider ukuthi ubatshela ukuthi iphone lahlekile. That's what I know mina ukuthi iphone mayilahlekile uyenza kanjalo. Ukuthi mele uye nase bank uyobachazisela bengazi, but it makes sense ukuthi at least mele ubatshele bank. And then for ama safety tips njengami usually ngisebenzisa fingerprint ama password angwathandi.
And with regard to the safety measures, I use face recognition, because for me I think it can only be me that can actually look into the phone.
No, bengekho aware ukuthi kumele ngisibike kuma bank, ngazuthi kumele ubike like kuma police station or something. Ngasho ukuthi ama tips mhlawumbe engawasebenzisa umuntu ukuthi asebenzise ifoni yakhe afake fingerprint or kube like afake ubuso bakhe so that kungayike kube lula so access kwifoni yakhe umuntu ofe istoliwe.
I don't know personally how many phones I've lost, probably around 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 maybe, and I don't remember going to the bank and saying normally what I do, because I think there's this thing that what the banks do, what like your, maybe not to mention the names, there's a bank, the certain bank acts that I know definitely when I do a swim swap, they broke everything, then you have to go there again so that you can do what, so you can at least get them, you can get what, you can just try to get your SIM card running again with the bank.
Very interesting indeed ukuthi ababukeli bazini ngalo bugebengu emakhaya. Asibonge kakhulu ngalo mbiko esiwenzele nguMakhumalo. Manje ke ukukhuluma kabanzi mbukeli ngalolu daba. Asamukele ivakashi zethu namhlanje. Let's welcome my ladies in studio. It's still Women's Month, so I've got an all ladies panel. I do have Nazia. Of course, she is from the South African Fraud Prevention Services. Nazia Karim Sibenaye no Narusha Nazeti okhulumela ihhovisi le National Financial Ombudsman. Ladies, great to have you in studio with me. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us. Look, Narusha, let's start with you. Obviously, we saw in the insert there, but before we get to how much consumers actually know about the dangers and, you know, the type of measures that they're supposed to undertake in order to protect themselves against these fraudulent schemers, let's first understand, you are now representing the NFO. Tell us what it is and understand there's been a couple of changes that has taken place in order to form this organization.
Yes, Alicia, it's exciting times in the Umbud space. As of the 1st of March this year, the 4 ombudsmen, financial ombudsmen, being the short-term insurance, the long-term insurance, and the credit ombud and the banking ombud, amalgamated to form one organization now known as the National Financial Ombud. So basically, we're one body, the access is easier, and we are here to investigate complaints brought by South African consumers against South African financial institutions. And the important thing to remember is that our services are free of charge.
Awesome news. Nazia, welcome back. I know. Just give a brief background of what it is that you guys do there by the South African Fraud Prevention Services one more time.
Well, South African Fraud Prevention Service, like the Ombuds, is a non-profit organization, and we actually provide fraud prevention services and protection for consumers. And it is an organization over 20 years old, initiated by the various members across the sector to actually help fight fraud at its root, prevent victims, and hopefully reduce the amount of incidents that we see.
I didn't hear free services there like
It is definitely free services for the consumers, all consumer
That's
services.
what consumers would like to hear. Anyway,
those are the magic words.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure everybody's now listening intently to this discussion that's about to unfold. So, ladies, I'm sure you saw our insert there. About 80% of the people that we spoke to say that they were not aware that should you have a stolen cell phone or fall a victim to fraud that is related to your cell phone banking or app, you need to go directly and report that to the bank. Nazia, why is this?
Well, I think maybe, first of all, it is an education and an awareness problem that does need to be addressed. I am actually glad to see that in the insert, some of the consumers actually are aware of some of the tips that need to
absolutely.
go to follow. And the reason for you actually needing to report your device stolen is the fact that it holds your personal information and that your banking app is linked to that particular device. Your institution actually needs to de-link that particular device and any facilities they have available that they're providing for you on that digital platform. If that device is not reported to them as stolen or lost, they will still probably have it linked to that profile, and if the fraudsters are able to hack that phone, it's made available for them on that device.
Absolutely interesting indeed. So, Nerusha, with this new amalgamation of the whole departments, the few departments that have now become the NFO, so tell me, if one is not getting luck from reporting fraud-related issues related to banking to the police station, how do they go about reporting it to you? And how is it that you assist them in return?
Okay, so for banking instance, you report it to your bank. They have a period in which to investigate the complaint, obviously gathering information, what really happened here. And after a period of time, they'll give you a report. It's either they're going to refund in full or they are denying liability.
And how long is this period, Nerusha? Because a lot of people are always saying, you know, my whole salary was fraudulently removed from my account and the bank is taking forever, but I've got bills and I'm falling behind in debt.
Yes. Generally, our experience has been that the investigation doesn't take months, for instance, especially with fraud. They do look into it. They look at the factors. They'll get back to you. We allow for a referral process where if you come to us, we'll send it back to the bank for them to investigate it and come through whether they're paying or not paying. In instances where they refute liability, then the consumer is more than welcome to lodge a complaint with the NFO, and we will take it from there in terms of gathering the information, go on a fact-finding mission and try to ascertain whether there can be liability here, where they'll need to refund, or whether, unfortunately, we're in a position where we can't find any negligence or maladministration on the part of the bank. But just to touch on what Nazia said, it is very important to de-link that phone. Especially from a mitigation point of view, because the moment you call the bank to advise them that I suspect something went wrong here, somebody stole my phone, they have an obligation to de-link the device from your platform, and any transactions that happen after that time of reporting, the bank will be liable for. So de-linking the phone and contacting the bank plays a major role in the mitigation or prevention of losses. So I think that's very important to keep in mind.
Very important indeed. And while you're there, Nerusha, while we're still talking about liabilities, which instances can a bank then not refund a client of which you will also rule on behalf of the bank as well? I think you spoke about negligence. How do you prove this negligence?
Okay, so in terms of the matters that come before us, Alicia, we investigate the matters. It's important for us to note that the relationship between a bank and a customer is a contractual one.
Absolutely.
So in terms of that contract, any information that is divulged, personal information that's divulged by the consumer voluntarily, unfortunately attracts liability to the consumer.
Okay.
So we'll do an investigation to see if there's any compromise on the bank side. If not, and we can see, listen, the customer was phished or vished or received an SMS and via those links divulged confidential information, unfortunately, in those specific matters, there will be no right to, recommendation that the bank refund the losses. But coming back to what I said initially, if we find that, listen, there was a compromise, however, the customer reported it within a certain time, and despite reporting it, 10,000 or 20,000 or some more funds left the account, and the bank failed to stop it at the time of reporting. So your loss, for instance, if your total loss was 20,000, and at the time of reporting, the bank could have limited that loss to 10,000, then the bank would be liable for the 10,000 that they failed to prevent.
Absolutely interesting indeed. A very quick one, Nazia, before we go to the ad break. Let's talk about, the reported rise in those fraudulent activities, including the trend of criminals that are targeting specifically banking apps on cell phones. I mean, the numbers are shocking. Apparently, Gauteng is sitting at 59%, and then we've got KZN that I think is number 2 at like 18%. So why are we moving ahead with technology if we cannot benefit from such technology?
I think the first thing we need to understand is the reason we're moving towards technology. The banking institution or financial institutions have motivated us to move towards digital transacting. They've implemented more secure transaction monitoring facilities to be able to pick out these suspicious transactions that are happening, and also to prevent fraud from taking place. And moving away from physical crimes like ATM heists or cash heists for that matter, which actually put you physically in danger. So this kind of frustrated the criminals. Now they needed a new outlet. And where else to go but into the digital realm? Today, you do your banking on your cell phone. You have your life on your cell phone. The next place to target for this particular criminals is a cyber attack on your device to access any particular features, functions, and money you may have on that device. And banking app is the logical stop.
Very interesting indeed. Mbugeli asithathe ikhefu. We're going to be back shortly after this to get into the nitty-gritty details pertaining security le provide ama-banks ukuthi wena uma udownloada leyo app uyakhona ukuthi ukwazi ukuzivimbela. Sibazwile ababukeli lapha bekhuluma ngokuthi bona basebenzisa facial recognition, abanye bathi basebenzisa ama-fingerprint recognition. Siyabona emva kwaleli ikhefu. After that, I'll also open up the lines nisifonele la e-studio and nisitshela ukuthi iyiphi ingxaki yakho and see how we can help. Yilungelo Lakho, back shortly after that. Do stay with us. We are back in Yilungelo Lakho Lagmamba Pambili SABC 1. Our lines are now open. Ungashayela ucingo 011-714-0671, alternatively 714-0672. You can send us a WhatsApp 0608449857. Alternatively, send us an email to consumer@sabc.co.za. My guests today, my two lovely ladies, Narusha Maseti from the National Financial Ombuds Scheme, South Africa, as well as Miss Nazia Karim from the Southern African Fraud Prevention Services. Sikhuluma lambukeli nge-cyber criminals that are actually stepping up indlela ukuthi bani-attack nina ngokuthi batshontshe ama-cell phones wenu bangene kuma-banking app enu bese bethatha izimali zenu. Ungashayela-ke ucingo noma usithinte lapha on our social media platform. So let's get on with the program. So Nazia, we're talking about the modus operandi that the criminals actually use. You and I were talking of it before we went, before we started the show, and you're telling me without specifying the specific makers of these devices, but they specific devices that are actually more vulnerable to being hacked than every other ones. So unfortunately, it's going to be some not so good news for those cell phone users or the people that are using those particular brands. But just take us through the outline. What makes these devices so easily accessible to criminals?
I think the first thing we need to understand is that every device has a vulnerability. And our banks, although they create these apps, they make it to the best security protocols that they have in place, and they adhere to the cybersecurity rules in order to make it safe for you to transact.
It's just easier for criminals to find ways around, you know, loopholes around their security.
The problem is not lying so much with the app itself, but it's actually lying with the user and their security and their behavior. Our users are very free in the manner in which they connect to open Wi-Fi's, the types of software that they download to their devices, sharing of their information freely, and also in some cases consumers load other people's biometrics onto their actual phone, thinking it's my daughter, it's my partner, let's actually load their biometrics to it so they'll have easy access to the device. But today, things like romance scams, things like money mules, you're not taking those considerations into account. You give the person access to your device, they have their biometrics loaded, they can access your banking app, they can move the money. Tomorrow, that romance scam has been initiated, your money is gone and the person's disappeared. Or in a more horrifying situation is the youngsters who are abusing the elderly that are looking after them, convincing them, listen, I will be able to manage these things for you, and gives them access to the device which has access to banking apps, and they use them for money mules purposes. But coming back to the device itself, there are particular brands of devices that the biometric services and functions can actually be replaced and changed instantaneously, or within a few minutes' time, the new owner, so to speak, of that cell phone will now be able to have access to any of the applications on the device that use biometric verification for access or transacting. And in this way, we need to manage how we actually load and store our biometrics, and when that device is stolen, that we need to have it immediately removed and delinked.
What extra security measures can a consumer undertake, Nazia, when purchasing a new phone that they're not necessarily familiar with the security levels pertaining to some of their apps?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is, when you're downloading an app, read the instruction about the app. Who is actually the developer of that app? What security functions were loaded on that particular application before you downloaded it to your device? Check to see what data and information you are giving that developer or that owner of that app the right to collect about you. And in that way, you can have control a little bit of the information. That is why we have the privacy laws today, to be able to protect you.
Don't just agree to all the cookies.
Don't just agree to everything. That is some of the beginning tips. And the general everyday tips are, don't open and use the free Wi-Fi. You don't know what you're agreeing to. You don't know who's monitoring those Wi-Fis. You don't know who's downloading your data when you use that Wi-Fis. And lastly, stay away from things like cyber cafes, where you would use devices that are used by other people.
Internet cafes.
Internet cafes. Don't do your banking on applications like those or in places like that. And if you are in a situation where you have to, make sure you delete all your browsing history, make sure you log off your profiles, make sure the password managers have not actually stored any of your passwords. It's a long, lengthy process. It's safer to prevent yourself from actually being put into that position. You
know, I'm going to go into that point a bit further after this caller there, Nazia. Let's go to the callers and welcome Maxwell all the way from Uppington. Maxwell, sakwamukela baba ohlelweni singakusiza kanjani namhlanje?
Yebo, ngiyaphila njani sisi?
Ngiyaphila bhuti njani?
Ngiyaphila nami. Sisi ngibene inkinga lana kule viki emva kweviki ephelile. Ukhuluma noMaxwell Nkosi ngisaphila njengamanje.
Yebo baba.
Ufike abantu abathi nabenza insurance engisho icompany yakho. Bathi na hayi siyacela bhuti ukuthi na uzojoyinela kanje abuthi na isebenza kanjani lento le. Bathi bona hayi lento lena ilula uthatha inamba yakho, i-cellphone number yakho, i-cellphone number yakho sokwazi ukuthi na uma uthi na usuyasebenza yakho ukuthi ilinke ngale yesibefonela bona e-office na uze office lakho uzosayina ingxoxa zakhona. Hayi okay manje shoza kwathi kodwa ke mina akasebenzi ngoba ngimila ngizofuna umsebenzi. You understand? Bathi ke bona hayi ayina stress into le ilula nje kanje ngithema ngithengise ngiphendule sebethu inamba yami hayi ngona ngena ama-message now le insurance le hayi maybe ngoba athathanga inamba i-account number yami ngeke kwenzeke lutho.
Yeah.
Uthe the following after 3 days umfana sekhansela imali. Nanti manje hambe ngone so kune-interview khona ufike khona khona. Le interview azangiye khona khona. Ani ngeke imali bayithatha yonke.
How? And then Maxwell labantu bebe offerisha wena umsebenzi but ended up bekhipha imali yakho kwi-banking app yakho.
And yes sisinto ezala ngaze ngashona mina ngafonela i-office lakhona abathe uchaze ngile inkinga ekwenzeke kanje bathi hayi bazorefunda back imali yakho after 10 days. Yabo. Ngayilinda leyo 10 days leyo azange bayibuyise imali. Namhlanje kethi bafonela njengoba ngizohlelo lo kethi bafonela bathi hayi ayibe 24 to 48 hours again.
Okay, all right. Okay, Baba. So, uke wayireporta le case lokhuze ne police station nikuphi manje nale company?
Azange ma report police station ngathi ngaza ukuthi ngifonele head officer khona. Ngoba into kozana yakhona ngiyayazi inamba yakhona ngayithatha. Ngathi angifuni ukwenza into ngathi ngoba ngizona iqhubeke ukuthi na ngihambe ngemsebenzini ngendaba yakho. Yangicela kahle na lento la ngithatha ngoba the end kuba nenkinga.
Oh. Okay. All right.
Ngathi okay ngoba sengafonele office lakhona angabe ngisayi ukuthi
Uyo report a police station. Okay. All right, but okay, but but Maxwell, so a very complicated issue here, ladies. He was approached by insurers. They wanted him to join. I think they also wanted to give him a job there. So he gave his details, personal details, numbers, but not his account number, right? So when, after 3 days or so, after having gone to that interview, money started going out of his account. He went and approached them again at the offices, and they said, no, we're going to refund you in 10 days. It's been 10 days. They're now sending him from pillar to post, and they begged him not to report this to the police station. So I don't know, what could be the issue there? Nazia?
Well, that depends. First of all, was the person who was providing the position impersonating a company? If it was obviously impersonating a company, then it was definitely a setup. So the moment he entered into
and he was referred by someone to go to this company, actually. So
it could also be most of the actual victims are a result of transferring information between people you know, and the people transferring the information to you don't really verify before they pass the information along, so you can fall victim to it. So he was probably compromised on premises. His device could have been compromised while he was busy with the interview, resulting in the fraudsters having access to his device, and overall, with the compromise of his biometrics, his transactions as well.
So what can he do now? Because should he go to the police station because they've begged him not to actually go and report it? And I'm thinking for him, that should have been signs like red flags to run to the nearest police station. Hold that thought, ladies. We're going to get that answer after this. After this ad break. Mbugeli, I'll start telling you careful. We're back shortly after this. Ungaindawo. Mbugeli, welcome back. We are still discussing the growing prevalence of digital scams and how consumers can actually guard themselves against the exposure to online scams. Yebo Mbugeli, sikhuluma phela ngey'gebengu lezi ey'ntshontsha ama-cellphone wenu, zingene kuma-banking app enu, zikhiphe yonke imali elapha yami. Noma wena usebenzisa internet cafe njengoba kade esho Nazia, ushiye imininingwane yakho lapha without logging off, noma ustore ama-password lapha kwifoni yakho, maybe ithola igebengu i-device yakho bayakwazi ukuthi bavule lapho, and amabhenki ke ngeke akwazi ukuthi akubuyisele imali ngoba kuthiwa uwena onegligent. So niyaxwayiswa ke babukela ukuthi nani nikwazi ukuthi nizigade lapha, and make sure ukuthi yonke into oyenzayo efonini yakho, imininingwane yakho oyifakile lapho, it is protected. All right, so ladies, Narusha, you were saying that our previous caller Maxwell can actually approach the NFO and then you can investigate, but what would you look into pertaining his investigation without obviously warning the people that he's going to bring this case against?
I think before we get into that, I think it's important, Alicia, like I mentioned to you when we were off air, when a scam appears, when a offer appears too good to be true, the first red flag is that it probably is. Okay, so in terms of the previous caller, yes, he can bring his complaint in terms of how his bank account was accessed, and the banking division at the NFO can investigate it. Unfortunately, with these things, we'll have to go on a fact-finding mission. We'll need to gather the information to try and ascertain what exactly happened, how access was gained, where does negligence or any maladministration lie. So, yes, he can definitely bring the complaint through. It's something we can look at and provide him with feedback.
All right. Narusha, I also want to, we were talking about security before we went to the break. I mean, what is the liability on the bank side? What is their responsibility in ensuring that funds do not leave a consumer's account without proper verification? I know the two-step, the facial verification or the fingerprint verification, but Nazia says some criminals are able to bypass all these security checks. So what then is the responsibility of the banks? Are they also supposed to, I don't know, upgrading their technology in terms of security along with the thugs? Because seemingly the thugs are way ahead of them in terms of technology.
Nazia, I think it would be fair to say that since the migration into digital platforms, the banks have put in various layers of security in order to secure a customer's bank account. I mean, like we alluded to earlier, the two-factor authentication.
You take selfies for certain transactions.
And then you can still take biometric verification. It is important to note there that even though some devices, like Nazia alluded to, may bypass that or you can hack it, what we found in our space, that if you bypass the biometric in terms of facial recognition, certain complaints that came through to us, the bank's app defaults to PIN and password. So it's not as if you can put your face on your fingerprint and then it's going to allow you access. So that's when the two-factor authentication comes into play. They have fraud monitoring, so they monitor your account, red flag any suspicious transactions, together having a look at what's happening now against historical patterns. They'll call you, say, listen, something's happening here, is it you? You've given an opportunity to say yes or no. The other thing they've introduced, which again speaks to the mitigation of losses, is SMS notification. So they send you notification of what transactions are happening on your account, giving you the opportunity to say, hey, this is not me. Let me contact my bank on the number in the SMS and stop that account, coming back to being able to prevent or limit the losses that are happening.
But Narusha, we've also seen these scams that such messages are actually sent purporting to be the bank. Nazia, then where do you draw the line in verifying this is actually the bank that is asking for my information just to verify that I'm trying to get into the account?
I think the first thing you need to remember is that the bank will send you a message. It'd probably be an in-app message, and you need to allow these in-app messages to come through. But the bank will never send you a link in that message to click on. The moment there's
or ask for your private information.
They will not ask you for information. They'll not ask you to confirm your password. They'll not ask you to click on that link. 100%. The moment any of these items pitch up in that particular message, it's automatically a scam. Delete it. Don't look at it. Rather contact the bank directly. The numbers in your statement or on their official website. Use the number. I think it's even on the back of your credit cards today if you look at it. Call that number. Find out, is this the message I received? Is it valid? Is it invalid? Don't click on the link and don't contact them using the number on the message.
All this time, my money is just, leaving my bank account in drones. So, Narusha, let's talk about this. I mean, banks, we know, banking apps and other digital banking platforms actually are there to offer more convenience to the consumers. But what are some of the risks? How safe are digital banking platforms in actually securing one's finances in totality? I know the owners, 50% lies with the user, as Nazia has pointed out, and of course the other one with the bank. So the third party?
Yes, again, Alicia, there's been various layers of security that have been happening in terms of digital platform. They've put in, like I said, again, to reiterate, the two-factor authentication. They've done a lot of consumer education around the issue. And consumer education is crucial in this space because, like Nazia said, it's important because the bank, it's a rule of thumb. The bank will never send you an email or call you whereby it requires you to disclose confidential banking information, it's not going to happen. And that should be your red flag. Consumer awareness initiatives in terms of just warning you about scam but not requesting any information from you, there's no danger in that. The danger comes in is when you are requested to divulge information, authenticate information that the bank has advised you. I mean, I know there's a lot of consumer education being done around it. I think there's always room for more education. I mean, if you look at the percentage of scams that are happening, definitely room for more education. But I think, you know, the consumer themselves have a role to play. I've just alluded to the fact that we've seen a new MO in our space in terms of the kidnapping and divulging your information under duress. And this could be possibly due to the fact that the security measures that are being put in place by the banks in their digital platforms are making it so difficult or more challenging now to gauge that information.
They have to go through you directly.
They're now going to you directly.
Hold that thought, Nerusha. Let's go back to the lines. Upudvusi, Soweto, sawubona nsizwa, singakusiza kanjani namhlanje, bakuphathe kanjani wena kwi-banking app yakho noma uthola ama-activities ongawazi lapha ya kukhishwa imali yakho kwi-banking app. Kwenzakale nsizwa? Ngiyaphila baba njani? Budvusi? Budvusi?
Mamela-ke dadewethu.
Yebo.
Ngiyaphila ngiyaphila tata.
Ngiyaphila baba.
Mamela-ke sisi mina nga-hijackwa ne? Ngiyakuzwa ma.
Yebo baba qhubeka.
Nga-hijackwa mina ne?
Yeah.
Ngiyaphila sisi yanizwa?
Yebo baba qhubeka.
Alright. Ngithi mina nga-hijackwa ne? Ya uku-hijackwa kwami ngabe ngithathelwa yonke into. Abanye bahamba ne-truck, abanye bangithatha ngabangifaka emotweni yabo bayongikhipha kwenye indawo somewhere lapha e-Rosebank, yabo? And kukuthi bangibambe ngiya eLekhuzana eBread. So imali bayikhiphe eLekhuzana ePitori lapha thola khona i-truck. Ngoba i-truck yatholakala ePitori.
Okay.
Yabo? So wathiwa imali ikhishwe ePitori. Alright, wavula i-case wayenza yonke into. Now angithi ngaleso sikhathi angikwazi ukuthi ngenzeni ngifone ngenzeni, but after lapho mangiqedile e-police station ngafonela ebhenki, yabo, ebhenki yabo ngaze ngaziyela myself ukuba reportela ukuthi ngenzakalelele into kanje and ngakahlekelwa imali engange-8,000. So kwenziwa njani uma kuyijeni? Yabo? Yeah, soloko mina ngagcina kuthiwa kusazo-investigate abazobuya kimi.
Okay.
Namhlanje basabuya kimi.
Okay, all right. Ma Budvusi bekhipha le mali wena angithi bebekubeka kwenye indawo kwenye location. Imali yakho bayikhiphe ngani ngebanking app noma bathatha amakhadi akho bayoyi-withdrawa ePretoria?
Bathatha amakhadi bangifuna iPin.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay, Budvusi.
Bangifuna iPin ngenkani ukuthi phakathi kokufa nokuphila lapho. Wafanele ukuthi ngigcine ngibanike ezile.
Okay baba, siyabonga kakhulu insizwa. Ulalele lapho kumabone kudeke ne baba sibone ukuthi sizokusiza kanjani. Mbukele, let's take another quick ad break. We're back shortly after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. We are still talking digital banking scams. 011-714-0671, 011-714-0672. WhatsApp us on 0608449857 or consumer@sabc.co.za. I'm with two beautiful ladies today, Miss Nerusha Maseti from the NFO, as well as Miss Nazia Karim from the Southern African Fraud Prevention Services. So, Nazia, I know you wanted to speak to our previous caller there. How can we assist him?
Well, I think the first thing we can do to start off the process is he needs to register for a protective registration on SAFPS so that when his probably phone was stolen, his identity, his information was on it as well, that we can actually provide protection against abuse of his identity by registering on the SAFPS platform.
Okay. How does that happen?
You go online, you register. It provides you with a full biometric verification process against the Department of Home Affairs.
And how does that help him in future?
So in future, when say an impersonator wishes to use his data to actually open up a facility at another store or a bank account using his details or take out a cell phone contract, it will ping and say, listen, this particular ID number has been subject to an incident. Check to see that the person who's standing in front of you is exactly the person they claim to be. And also they have a particular reference letter and documentation that they need to provide for verification purposes. And if the person cannot provide that verification document, then you know for a fact that the person standing in front of you is not the actual victim.
Awesome stuff. Okay. And Narusha, I know you said it's quite a complicated case because obviously there has to be a lot of things that need to be proven on both sides. The bank can't just refund somebody. But in this case, we do know he was hijacked. A case was registered with the SABC. His company that he works for is aware because the truck that he was driving, which belongs to the company, was actually recovered in that location where the money was actually withdrawn. So does he have a case? Can he approach you? How would you assist him?
Yes, he most certainly can approach us. I welcome the last caller to approach us. As I said earlier, we can have a look at the matter, investigate how access to the bank account was done, and also look at mitigation, if there was any mitigation duties on the part of the bank after the time of reporting in terms of any funds that could have been salvaged.
And so by that you mean by the time he reported, the bank made sure that they blocked the number, they disassociated the cards, everything.
They stopped the account, they froze the account, and no further transactions could happen.
Awesome stuff. Let's go back to the lines. But Richard, all the way from Middelburg, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Sixes and Janbab.
Hi, how are you?
Siyaphila Baba, unjani wena?
I'm good. I would like to also partake on the topic today.
Oh, absolutely, Richard. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hello?
Yes, Richard, go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying mine was a question of being scammed through the phone.
What happened?
I was called when I was using a certain service provider, and then I was called on when I was using a certain network provider, right? And then I was told that there's an old woman who is trying to open an account using the same number as mine. So those people who called me, they said to me, let us give you a certain USSD so that we block this person from not using your number. Then I was like, okay, because it was from a certain network service provider. I did not even think it can even affect my banking issues. Only to find that after they give me the USSD to put into my cell phone. In other words, they gave me that so that I blocked my cell phone number. And then after blocking my cell phone number, it happened on the day before getting paid. So the following day, because now I had to go and get the new SIM card and all those things, the following morning, actually afterwards, the day my SIM card was not working, my number was not working, my phone was not working. Everything was blocked. And then the following day when I went to get the new SIM card and get my phone functional, went to the bank to try and link the new SIM card. That's when I found out that they have already took the money from the bank.
Okay. And then what did the bank say when you reported that this wasn't you making those transactions?
When I told the bank, I was told to go open a case so that when I come back to
the bank.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Richard.
All right. I was told to go open a case. So I went to the police station, opened a case, went back to the bank. Then they said I must give them at least 10 days. After 10 working days, I was told that, okay, they could see that the money was taken from my bank and it's not their fault, neither it's my fault, but unfortunately there's nothing they can do. I never received any, not even a cent. I had to ask from my colleagues for the donations throughout that month because I didn't have anything. They took all the salary for that month.
Shame. We're sorry to hear about that experience, Richard. Please listen there on your television. Maybe the ladies can assist you in terms of how you can take this case further. Narusha?
As you know, the different forms of fraudsters approaching you to try and gauge your confidential information, and one of them is vishing. It's the means of a telephone call where they use very sophisticated
Just like
means
the
and
SMS.
manipulative social engineering to try and gauge you, to try and divulge your confidential information. And soon after that, the modus operandi is that funds leave your account. In terms of the previous speaker, again, I invite him to lodge a complaint with the banking
NFO,
division of the NFO. It's something we can look at. Obviously, things like how was the platform accessed? Was it with his password and PIN? Those are the things that we'll investigate. We'll have more we'll have to talk to him more information around the call that he received and what kind of information he was asked to disclose. So I think on the facts that he's just presented, he can lodge a claim with our offices and we can look into what transpired there. Okay.
Now, Nazia, let's look at other methods that these criminals are actually using or employing to actually defraud people. If it's not the SMS we're hearing, they can actually call you directly and you end up blocking yourself from your own account. And then there's WhatsApp. I know a colleague whose number was asking everybody for cash, and some people actually gave the lady the cash, and she wasn't aware up until some people were like, but when are you paying us back? Because we're in the same building. So all this time, her phone was still functional. Her WhatsApp was still functional. So many ways that these criminals are actually targeting victims.
I think one of the things we need to understand is that the technology we have today is connected to the internet. The information and the tool that we have in our pocket every day is a powerful tool. We need to understand the risks associated to it and the security features and functions available on that device, and also how you can actually compromise yourself on that device. For a simple thing like the caller that just mentioned now, a vishing call where he actually might have given away information that facilitated a SIM swap that could have resulted in an OTP being provided that approved a particular transaction and facilitated the funds to have the authorized and moved. So simple transactions, simple understanding of how those particular incidents take place, learning about the various modus operandi that takes place, the different tips, trips, and when to actually notice it's happening or you being targeted is the catch.
Oh my goodness. Ngiyaxwayiswa-ke abantu abadala sicela nogogo bandla mekuwukuthi nihleli ney'ngane lapho nabantwana siyacela ukuthi nenze sure ukuthi ogogo bangashiphe lamafoni nabazukulu, nokuthi wena uwumzali ushiye amafoni akho uyekele ingane ukuthi ingene kona, because awazi ukuthi what information ezoklikha kuyona, and lapho-ke yila kuthiwa ibhenki alikwazi ukukusebenzisela khona. Mbukeni, we're back shortly after this. Ungayindawo. It's our final segment. As usual, whenever we're having fun, isikhathi siyagijima. We don't know where time flies to, but I'm still joined by the pretty ladies, Miss Narusha Maseti there from the National Financial Ombud Scheme, South Africa, alongside the lovely Miss Nazia Karim from the Southern African Fraud Prevention Services. Sikhuluma Mbukeli ngokuthi wena ungazivikela kanjani ukuthi labo tsotsi uma bentshontsha ifoni yakho bangangeni kuma app akho. You can even hide your apps. I don't know why Nazia hasn't told you today ukuthi uyakhona ukuthi ufihle ama banking apps umuntu mephethe ifoni yakho angaboni ukuthi ene unama banking apps. Let's just go to social media lana sibheke ukuthi nithini. Uthi uSteven Mashila, digital scams have indeed been on the rise in the recent years. As technology advances, scammers are also becoming more sophisticated in their tactics. It's very important to stay informed about the different types of scams, such as phishing emails, fake websites, as well as fraudulent investment schemes. Protecting yourselves involves being very cautious with your personal information, using strong passwords, and verifying the authenticity of any request that you might receive online. And that is what we've been trying to drill to you the whole hour with the ladies. So, Narusha, just also, I suppose, in relation to what Stephen Mashila is warning people, this is why this show is here, to warn as well as protect consumers. But obviously, the information sometimes may not reach the relevant people, or people take advantage of the fact that, like I was making reference, some parents are living with their grandmothers in the rural areas. The grandmothers do not know how technology works. So everything for them is just an opportunity to make a quick buck. So how do we drill this into people to ensure the safety of personal information?
Consumer education, consumer education, consumer education. That's what it's about. I mean, the more informed you are, you put in a position to make an informed decision. And like you said, I mean, they are vulnerable consumers.
Absolutely.
They aged a large percentage of vulnerable consumers in that category. So I think, you know, just being alert and being informed is your weapon against these very sophisticated fraudsters, because I mean, just when you think you got ahead of them, they're up with another scam. So I think consumer education, and also another from our space, the tips I would give banking customers is that go to your bank's website. Have a look, because there's a lot of consumer education happening on that website, alerting them to different scams, alerting them to the do's and don'ts. Again, I cannot say I cannot say this enough. Rule of thumb, bank is not going to ask you PIN, password, or any other confidential information. So it's those kinds of things. I mean, there's nothing that I can say is foolproof, Alicia, but I think just being a simple thing like password protecting your device before you even go into any app, having stronger passwords, changing your passwords regularly. Those kind of things
and
can go.
don't store those very same passwords on your phone. I know Nazia is always drilling this into people, because Nazia, I mean, phishing emails, particular websites, there's even website cloning where a letter that looks like it's exactly from your bank or your service provider is going to fool somebody who's not looking for the nitty-gritties. So what extra security can consumers adhere to in order to protect themselves?
I think the first thing, I must definitely agree with Verusha when it comes to consumer education. Digital literacy has become a priority. It is no longer a privilege. It is a need you need to actually feed. And it needs to be consistently fed, because technology changes continuously and you need to keep up with that change.
They will tell you, ladies, we were born before technology. The BBTs will not want to go and educate themselves around that. Ladies, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Those were my guests today, Narisha Maseti from the National Financial Ombuds Scheme South Africa, alongside Ms. Nazia Karim from the Southern African Fraud Prevention Services. Ladies, thank you so much. And of course, we've had your information throughout the show. A lot of people have been calling us. They will be, of course, able to contact you. Mbugeli, that is where we end today's program. We're also on SABC Plus. From all of us here in studio, nisale kahle, nibe safe and be careful. Kulabo makole kukwini. Wakajala umntana uthi unthanda nonke emakhaya. Bye bye.